I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. And the first motion is by Member Quinn, second by Member Creaser. Be it resolved that Committee of Adjustment agenda dated April 11th, 2022 be adopted. Are there any questions or comments? May have to change the, oh, there he is. Okay, so Mr. Quinn is here. And what I would say is with the agenda, the last item, F, pauser, that has been withdrawn, so we will not be hearing that today. So if anyone is here for that application, it has been withdrawn, okay? Thank you very much. So all those in favor? That's carried. And are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? See none. Okay. I will read this. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. Thank you. Excuse me. And the next resolution is moved by Member Bosworth, second by Member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that the minutes dated March 14th, 2020 be adopted and approved as circulated. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. And Rachel, would you like to, just 1 second, I'll get them on there.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is required that I make a few statements, and then I will explain the procedures of the hearing. The electronic hearing is being held in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The members of the Committee of Adjustment present are Chair Alan Edwards, members Joe Quinn, Lisa Grogan Green, Rob Bosworth, and Sharon Creaser. I can confirm that we have a quorum. I also confirm that senior staff and planning staff are present. Public input on this April 11th, 2022 agenda was invited at the following email address: planning@muskokalakes.ca. It should be noted the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. When it is time to vote, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded. This is not considered a recorded vote. Now I will explain the hearing process. The planner will provide an explanation and purpose of the application, the date the notice was circulated, and planning staff's comments. All internal and external submissions were sent to committee members Thursday, April 7th, 2022. The planner will also present any submissions received after this date. Committee will then hear from the applicant or the applicant's agent if they wish to add any information or to substantiate their proposal. Please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. Committee will hear from those in support of the application and those in opposition to the application. Again, please provide your name, mailing address, and postal code for our records. If you are here to speak on an application, please wait to raise your hand in Zoom until the planner presents the relevant application. Committee will then hear the applicant or the applicant's agent respond to any questions or concerns raised. Committee will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and/or staff. Committee will debate the application and make a decision based on the information presented at the hearing. Please note that the effect of written and oral submissions on decisions of applications for consent and minor variances and the reasons for minor variance decisions, as both required under the Planning Act, will be pre-populated with standard wording. However, committee may decide to add reasons and/or effects to the standard wording after voting on a decision. It must be noted that the chair has a vote on each application and can participate in the discussion. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of the decision. In the case of a minor variance application, a building permit is not available until after the appeal period and no appeals are received. When you present at the hearing, Please provide us your name and mailing address. Any presentation is limited to 5 minutes unless otherwise permitted by the committee. Please note that the resolutions are automatically written in the positive to assist in completing the decisions, as opposed to writing out each resolution. This does not in any way mean an application is going to be approved. One last thing, please take down the pink notice signs that were posted on your property to advertise today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated, Ms. Mahone. And our first application is B 14121ML, and as well, it's A 10221 Garron Holdings, and that is Ms. Darling.
Good morning. Thank you, Roberts. The next application to be heard is concurrent consent and minor variance application B 14021ML and A 10221 in the name of Garron Holdings, Inc. The subject property is known municipally as 1019 Hamels Point Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 39 and 40 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to sever a portion of their property and add it to an abutting lot in the ownership of Garron Properties, Inc. with 2 variances. Relief is requested for the maximum cumulative dock width of 75 feet on a lot with more than 300 feet on a Category 1 lake. The existing dock is 77 feet. The variance requested is 2 feet. Relief is also requested from the minimum interior side yard setback requirement of 15 feet. The side yard setback is to be 11 feet. The variance requested is 4 feet. So four submissions have been, notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 14 days in advance, and 4 submissions have been received to date. The first 3 submissions were from the Public Works Department, the Building Department, and the Building Inspector, and these 3 comments were sent to committee prior to today's meeting. The 4th submission is from the District Municipality of Muskoka, and comments were received from Curtis Syvret, the district planner, and they have no objection to the application. And the 5th submission is from Eric Campbell, the township's interim fire protection officer, who comments that the location is 4 minutes from the nearest fire station with a 10-minute assembly time. Under ideal conditions, the first arriving apparatus would take 14 minutes to this location. Our fireboat, under ideal conditions, could take over 30 minutes to arrive. We suggest maintaining water access to allow us to be able to set up portable fire pumps in the event of a fire. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration. Staff have recommended standard conditions of consent, requiring that a registrable description of the severed lot and any required rights of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. That a legal undertaking be submitted in order to confirm that the severed lot will merge in title to the lot that is being added to upon registration of the transfer or deeds, and that the width of the existing dock and side yard setback of an existing garage be recognized on the retained lot. Staff have no concerns with the minor variance application and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. Excuse me. And I believe the applicant's agent here.
Yes, he's coming in now.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm not sure if you can hear me or see me.
I can hear you, sir. Yes.
Oh, that's perfect.
And then you
Perfect.
can turn your video on if you like as well.
Where are we? Oh, there we are. Thanks. Sorry about that. My name is Robert Blunt, and I'm a land use planner at Bennett Jones in Toronto. Our client is the landowner here, and the application before you is pretty simple.
Excuse me, can I have your name and address and postal code, please?
Name and address, Robert Blunt. I was actually the applicant, as I said, land use planner at Bennett Jones in Toronto. It's 3400 Suite 3400, 100 King Street West, Toronto, I believe it is, I can probably find it, M5X1A4 would be the address.
Thank you.
Just to start over, so I'm a land use planner working at Bennett Jones. Our applicant, our client is the landowner of the subject property. The application is quite simple and a little bit interesting in terms of, I would say it has two purposes. So to our client, they have used the subject land, which is this triangle that they're transferring as a lot addition from one of the properties to the other. In the way they've operated or used the cottage property, that land has always been part of the lands we're adding it to. The bigger picture, though, the Garrons, the reason we're actually making the paper change is it's for estate planning purposes. So that's the background. So there's no construction anticipated or proposed or related to this in any way. It's just, this is how the properties have functioned on the ground, and we're regularizing it now through paperwork. So that's the consent, the lot addition consent, and the minor variance relates to actually the existing garage situation. So it's a side yard setback, and then I would say more of a technical recognition of the boathouse, the dock width. So those are the two the consent and the minor applications before you. And as I said, they're pretty straightforward and have been working with township staff to move this forward. So if anyone has any questions, certainly here to try and answer them.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
No.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
No.
Are there questions from the members? Seeing none. Me. Moved by member Creaser, second by member Quinn. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 140-21/ML Garron Holdings, Inc., provided that the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, that a registrable description deed of the separate lot and any required right-of-way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with the registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that a legal undertaking be submitted in order to confirm that the separate lot will merge in title to the lot is being added to upon registration of the transfer/deed. And 3, that the width of the existing dock and side yard setback of an existing garage be recognized on the retained lot. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
And moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Creaser. Be it resolved that application A 102/21 Garron Holdings, Inc., to recognize the resultant cumulative dock width on retained lot is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a maximum cumulative dock width of 77 feet on the retained lot. And 2, to permit the existing garage on the retained lot to be 11 feet from the northerly interior side lot line of the resultant lot. These variances are granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. And just 1 second, I'm just going to get a drink of water. Sorry about that. The next application is B 134/21 ML Harding Farms Limited, and that is Mr. Sawyer. Good morning.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Good morning, members of the committee. The next application to be heard is consent application B 134/21 ML in the name of Harding Farms Limited. The subject lands consist of an 88-acre parcel, of which a portion is within the boundaries of the resort village of Minette, and the balance of the property is within the waterfront designation, with 137.5 feet of frontage on Lake Joseph. Lake Rosso. The subject lands do not have a municipal address assigned. The proposal involves a change in lot boundaries only, with no new lots being created. The portion where the lot boundaries are changing are located in the waterfront designation. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketches on page 56 of today's agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to sever 1.55 acres involving the entire shoreline frontage on Lake Joseph and add this severed portion to an abutting waterfront lot. The land that is to be severed is vacant, and the benefiting lot contains a dwelling and accessory structures. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 14 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and 3 comments have been received, which have been forwarded to the committee in advance of today's meeting. Actually, there's 4 comments, and the 4th, while there was no concerns expressed by the township chief building official or with regards to septic systems, or by the district of Muskoka. The 4th submission is from Public Works Technician Tim Sopko, advising that a snowplow turnaround on Cedar Rail Drive appears to be located on the subject lands, and that the road allowance width at this location has a substandard width of 10 meters instead of the standard width of 20 meters. In order to properly accommodate the snowplow turnaround, Public Works staff have requested that a road widening be required as a condition of consent. And this condition has been added to today's resolution. I've prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff have no concerns with the application and have recommended the standard conditions for a lot addition. Staff have also recommended a condition to address flooding concerns. Floodplain mapping data shows that a significant portion of the severed lot is located within the floodway of Lake Joseph. Therefore, staff have recommended that the owner of the benefiting lot be required to enter into a consent agreement under section 5126 of the Planning Act, wherein the owner agrees to construct all land-based buildings and structures outside of the floodway. Please note that after the staff report and the resolution was prepared, the applicant's agent requested that the consent agreement condition be replaced with a condition that requires the lands on the severed lot that are within the floodway to be rezoned to prohibit development below the static floodline elevation. This is a different approach for committee to consider to ensure that development will not occur in the floodway, and the applicant's agent, I believe, is here today to outline their request for this change, which will require the submission of and approval of a zoning bylaw amendment. I have no further comments at this time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer. And is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of this application? Agent, okay. Could you bring them in, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of committee and staff. My name is Stefan Scherback, and I'm a planner with Planscape, 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge, P1L 1C6. I understand that the owner, Mr. William Gray, who's representing the Harding Farms, is in attendance and may be available if I can't answer any questions that the committee has today. As indicated by Mr. Soya, this application is fairly straightforward, where it simply adjusts portions of the common lot lines between the two subject properties. Again, the two properties are under the same ownership. And the main developed property, based on the severance sketch in front of you, is a very small property in terms of lot area, but it complies with the water frontage on Lake Rosso. Not Lake Joseph, but this is on Lake Rosso. In addition, the other property is a very large property, but it has deficient frontage along the lake. The effect of this application will be to bring both properties into full compliance with respect to lot area and frontage. It's always preferred and often the direction of an official plan to merge undersized properties so that they're in full compliance. And clearly this application is doing that. And with respect to our recommendation to zone the floodplain land, this is actually the correct way to deal with a zoning issue, is to actually implement this through zoning, not through a agreement registered on title. Although I appreciate staff's suggestion to put an agreement on title, there's often legal and real estate implications that can come into play. And when there's an agreement on title, it can cloud the title, where this floodplain elevation would be better suited to proceed through a zoning amendment application. The applicant is fully aware that this is going to take a little longer, and based on our recommendation to our clients, they're satisfied that the preferred approach would be through zoning. From my perspective, I don't believe there's any issues from the township's perspective. You're still going to achieve the exact same outcome. This just makes it clear moving forward that there is a zoning restriction with this floodplain elevation versus trying to find something on title that may change over time. Again, I just want to thank staff for their report and for their complete policy analysis and their positive recommendations. And again, I appreciate staff considering this, our proposed revision to the conditions. I fully agree with their policy analysis and would respectfully request the committee to support this direction. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone else speaking in favor?
No.
Anyone in opposition?
No.
No? Are there questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Quinn.
Does this become if it's going to go for a zoning bylaw amendment, is this something we should be deferring, or is it a two-part process?
Just 1 second. I'll bring Mr. Sharp in on that.
Good morning.
Thank you, Member Quinn, for your question. Good morning, committee, and through Chair Edwards. It's a great question, and sometimes we don't see a lot of these types of conditions coming forward in relation to consent applications before a committee of adjustment, but it certainly is something that can be done, and it's just a two-part process. There's no reason to defer the application. I will just, of course, if committees looking to impose the alternative condition that Mr. Surbach is suggesting, we would just amend the resolution to state such, and that would require the submission of a zoning bylaw amendment application that would be submitted and would require approval by council in order to fulfill your condition of the committee of adjustment. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Does that answer your question? Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
Another question for Mr. Sharp. We hear from Mr. Surbach that the right way to do it is through a zoning bylaw amendment or an amendment. But I'd be interested from Mr. Sharp's opinion on what is actually the strongest method to protect that wetland with respect from the township's point of view.
Okay, just 1 second.
Thank you, Member Bosworth, for your question, and through you, Chair Edwards. Certainly, the consent agreement was the approach that we took, just given that only a consent application was in play, and we were looking to utilize the tools that we have available to us in our toolbox under the Planning Act to proceed without necessitating yet another application. However, Mr. Surback has indicated that it would be his preference to proceed with the zoning bylaw amendment application, which we certainly don't have an issue with, and I can see the benefit in proceeding that way, given that in that case, the bylaw that would go before council, and if it is approved, it would become applicable law under the Ontario Building Code, whereas an agreement wouldn't, and the requirement for development outside of the floodplain would not become buried in an agreement. So it is a strong approach, and we don't have any concerns with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Any other questions? Seeing none. Moved by member Bosworth, second by member Quinn. May it resolve the consent be granted for application B 134/21 ML Harding Farms Limited, providing the following conditions are fulfilled.
Sorry, do you want me to add that condition or?
Yeah, I'll read it, then you can add it. One, a registered description deed of the severed lot and any required right of way be submitted to Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of reference plan. Two, the legal undertaking be submitted in order to confirm that the severed lot will merge in title to the lot is being added to upon registration of the transfers/deeds. Three, that a consent agreement under Section 5126 of the Planning Act be entered into with the township wherein the owner agrees to construct all land-based buildings and structures outside of the floodway defined in 226.70 of the strategic flood elevation. And four, that a road widening be conveyed to the township to the satisfaction of the township's Public Works Department. And on that number three, we're just going to add that zoning.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay. Yes, Stephen?
My apologies, Mr. Chair. I think you said the word add that condition, but it's going to replace that condition.
Well, that's right. Yeah. We're just adding it to that line is what I meant. And that's being done right now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So through you, Chair Edwards, I'll just read the condition that it was going to replace condition 3. So condition 3 will become that a zoning bylaw amendment be approved to prohibit new land-based buildings and structures on the resultant lot from being constructed within a static floodline elevation of 226.70 meters above sea level.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Just Devin.
The next application is B 144/21 ML Robertson. And that is Ms. Walker.
Good morning, Chair Edwards and members of committee. The next application to be heard is consent application B/144/21 ML in the name of Robertson. The subject lands are known municipally as 1201 Innisfree Road. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 78 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is as follows. Consent application B/144/21 ML has been made to grant a right-of-way over part of the Robertson property in favor of the benefiting lot. The area of the proposed right-of-way contains part of an existing driveway, a culvert, and a satellite dish. No other changes are proposed at this time. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 17 days in advance and 5 submissions have been received to date. Comments have been received from Nick Snyder, the Township's Chief Building Official, Tim Sopko, the Township's Public Works Technician, and Sandy Boss, Septic Inspector. These comments were circulated to committee prior to today's meeting and can be read in full at the request of committee. After circulation, 2 further comments were received. The first was from the District Municipality of Muskoka indicating they have no objection. The second submission was received after circulation was from Eric Campbell, Interim Fire Protection Officer, and the submission is as follows. This location is 8 minutes from the nearest fire station with an 10-minute assembly time, meaning under ideal conditions, an apparatus would arrive at this location in 18 minutes. We suggest that any driveways or lanes that are to be used for fire service access follow the requirements of the Ontario Building Code Section 9.10.20.3. Whereas there are any structures at this location, we suggest that access to the water be kept open to allow for the use of portable fire pumps in the event of a fire at this location. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have no objection. If committee is considering approval, staff recommend the following conditions. 1, that a registerable description/deeds of the severed lot or right-of-way, in this case, be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. And 2, confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Staff have no further comments at this time, but are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here? And I believe we have Jane Murray.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Nathalie Lalonde-Goldhar, and I reside at 1205 Innisfree Road, Port Carling, POB 1J0. I am the owner of 1205 Innisfree and also acting as the agent for the Robertsons. Basically, we purchased a property in November 2017 and only had a proper plan of survey completed last spring. That's when it came to our attention that a portion of our existing driveway and the satellite dish actually reside onto the Robertsons' land. We approached the Robertsons and came to an agreement that they would be willing to give us a right of way. And in coming to committee today, we are only trying to legally allow the continuity of access to our property and to the satellite dish without trespassing on the Robertsons' property. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support?
No.
Anyone in opposition? Questions from the members? Moved by member Creaser, second by member Bosworth. Be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 144/21 ML Robertson, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registrable description deed of the severed lot right of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, that confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the retained lot is satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal, and that any problems identified with the existing sewage system be corrected to the satisfaction of the township. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. And the next application is B 145/21 ML.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is consent application B 145/21 ML in the name of Zanelli. Subject lands do not have a municipal address assigned, but are located immediately to the west of Muskoka Road 169 between Glen Orchard and Bala. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted consent sketch on page 96 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of the application is to create one additional rural lot with frontage on Muskoka Road 169. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 14 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and 4 comments have been received. Comments from the township's chief building official, from the township's septic inspector, and from the township's public works technician do not indicate any concerns and have been forwarded to committee in advance of the meeting. The 4th submission is from the district municipality of Muskoka. The recommendation of the district's letter reads as follows. District staff would not be opposed to the approval of the above noted application, provided that the proposed building envelope be amended as required to exclude areas below the static flood elevation of Lake Muskoka, and that the following is implemented as conditions of consent. Number 1, the applicant to obtain a conditional permit from the district of Muskoka for the proposed severed and retained lots for access onto the severed and retained lots from the district road. Number 2, the lands to be subject to an agreement with the district respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road. And number 3, appropriate development control techniques be used to implement the recommendations of the environmental impact study prepared by Riverstone Environmental. A detailed staff report has been prepared for committee's consideration. Staff have recommended that the application be approved, subject to standard conditions for a severance, requiring that a registrable description of the severed lot and any required right of way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. Also, dedication to the township of cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created lot or the entire lands, whichever is less. Another condition requires confirmation that the lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal systems. Also confirmation that entrance permits are available along Muskoka Road 169 from the district of Muskoka. In accordance with the comments from the district, a condition has also been added to require the requested agreement to address the location of wells. And additional conditions of consent have also been added to implement the recommendations of the environmental impact study completed by Riverstone Environmental. The purpose of this study was to delineate wetland boundaries and assess potential impacts to species at risk habitat, significant wildlife habitat, and fish habitat. The study delineated the boundaries of all wetlands on the subject property and concluded that envelopes exist in which development can occur without negatively impacting these sensitive natural heritage features, provided the recommendations recommendations provided in the environmental impact study report are implemented. Therefore, to ensure proper implementation, staff have recommended conditions that require that the owners enter into a consent agreement with the township under section 5126 of the Planning Act, wherein the owners agree to implement the recommendations of the study. In addition, staff have recommended that the wetland and the 100-foot buffer that was delineated in the by Riverstone Environmental, that these features be rezoned to environmental protection, EP1. Comments from the district municipality of Muskoka had suggested that a portion of the proposed development envelope on the retained lot may be located in the identified floodway. Upon further review of by the township, all portions of the building envelope do appear to be located outside of the floodway. Provided these conditions are required, staff have no concerns with the application, and I have no further comments at this time, but would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soya. Is there applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amy Powell, and I am the agent, the planning consultant representing the landowners for file B1421ML. Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members, members of the public and staff. My name is Amy Powell, and I'm the Chief Planning Officer for Powell Planning and Associates, the planning consultant acting on behalf of the Zanelli family for the lands that are subject to application B14521ML, an application for consent on rural lands. Mario
Can we
Zanelli
have
is
your mailing address, please?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. My mailing address is 202 8th Avenue in New Tecumseth, and the postal code is L9R0H5.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I also had a presentation, but I don't see it on my screen. Was staff able to share the slides? Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. So next slide, please. Oh, perfect. Overview. I will be providing a brief presentation speaking to the file's history, providing a description of the site's location and existing state, describing the development that we are here today to discuss before the committee, and concluding with summarizing how the application represents good planning in accordance with the provincial, district-wide, and local level policies as to how growth of this nature and scale is appropriate within the context of the subject lands. Next slide, please. So we undertook a pre-consultation process last spring between April 2021 to May 2021, whereas township staff directed for us to ascertain verification that no historical severances had taken place on site as of October 13th, 1992, and that we obtained the availability of entrance permits as necessary from the District of Muskoka. Both of these requirements were met through the initial pre-consultation process that then led us to meet with township staff to further confirm that an environmental impact study would be required to establish on-site natural heritage features and species to ensure that, should the severance be granted, mitigation measures would be enacted. The study was completed by Riverstone Environmental Solutions in the fall of 2021, and that was followed by our comprehensive submission supporting or making the request for a consent to the committee today. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located off of Frank Miller Memorial Route, Muskoka Road 169, east of Medora Lake Road in the central west area of the township. The site is approximately 23.6 hectares in size. It's generally flat in its terrain and has approximately 628 meters of frontage on Muskoka Road 169. The township designates the lands as rural, low density area 2 and zones them as rural RU2, as well as rural scenic corridor RU2-S and environmental protection. Residential uses, however, are permitted within the rural designation of the subject lands. The lands are currently vacant with tree cover. Next slide, please. With With regard to the proposed development, so through the proposed consent, the retained lands located on the northern portion of the site would become approximately 17.6 acres in size, and the severed lands located to the southern portion of the site would become approximately 6 acres in size. Both parcels are anticipated to be used for future residential uses, especially to note outside of any hazard lands or environmental features located on site. Final lot configuration may be dependent on the availability of entrance permits, as emphasized by the District of Muskoka. However, regardless of that configuration, both lots will definitely meet the minimum size with regards to the subject zones and their standards. Overall, this proposed development offers a higher and better use of the lands than what exists today, and it provides sympathetic as well as compatible growth, where growth of this nature is meant to be permitted. With regards to the next slide. So with regards to supporting policies, we really do believe that in accordance with the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, the District of Muskoka's official plan, the Township of Muskoka Lakes official plan, the Township of Muskoka Lakes zoning bylaw, as well as the environmental impact study created by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, the proposed development aligns with provincial, regional, and lower tier land use planning, as well as environmental planning and its respective policies. The development represents feasibility that maintains the character of the neighborhood while better utilizing the subject lands and overall represents good planning. We thank you today for your consideration of this application.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
No.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
No.
Okay, are there questions from the members? By Member Bosworth, second by Member Quinn, be it resolved that consent be granted for application B 145/21 ML Zanelli, provided the following conditions are fulfilled. 1, a registered description deed of the separate lot and any required right-of-way be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. 2, the cash in lieu of parkland be dedicated to the township in the amount of 5% of the assessed value of the newly created lot of the entire lands, whichever is less. Excuse me. 3, the confirmation be received that the township is satisfied that the severed and retained lots are satisfactory for on-site sewage disposal systems. 4, that the applicant obtain a conditional permit from the District of Muskoka for the proposed severed and retained lots for access onto the district road. 5, that the lands are subject to an agreement with the District Municipality of Muskoka pursuant to Section 5126 of the Planning Act, respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road. 6, the consent agreement be entered into the township, Section 5126 of the Planning Act, whereas the owner agrees to implement the recommendations of the environmental impact study prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated October 16, 2021. This agreement shall be registered on title. And 7, that a zoning bylaw amendment be approved to rezone the wetland and 100-foot wetland buffer identified in the environmental impact study provided by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, dated October 16, 2021, to environmental protection EP1. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. The next application is A 8721, and that's Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Next application to be heard is minor variance application A8721 in the name of Renzima and Abella. The subject lands are located at 4916 Muskoka Road 169, Unit 15. I direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 177 of today's agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to enlarge an existing dwelling. The property is located on Lake Joseph, where the maximum permitted lot coverage within 200 feet of the high water mark is 10%. As a result of a previous minor variance approval to permit a dwelling addition, the existing lot coverage is 10.2%. And now the applicant is proposing a further enlargement of the dwelling, resulting in a lot coverage of 11%, or 5,397 square feet. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 11 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and 4 comments have been received to date, all of which have been provided to committee for review prior to today's meeting. And no concerns were expressed by township staff or by members of the public, and letters of support were submitted by both abutting neighbors. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff have no concerns with the application, except for that the site plan indicates that one of the accessory buildings is used as a gym. Within a residential waterfront zone, only 2 habitable buildings are permitted, and a gym is considered to be a habitable building. Since the property already contains a dwelling and a sleeping cabin, the gym would be a 3rd habitable building, and the proposed dwelling additions would therefore not comply. To resolve the issue, staff have included a condition requiring confirmation that the property contains no more than 1 sleeping cabin, or no more than 2 habitable buildings. Either one of these buildings, or either one of the sleeping cabins, the sleeping cabin or the gym would be required to be changed to a non-habitable use, and if required or if necessary, a change of use permit would be required to be issued. I have no further comments at this time, but I would be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or the agent here?
The applicant is here.
Okay, bring them in, please.
Good morning. It's Andrew Rinsma and Catherine Abella here. Our mailing address is 425 Elm Road, Toronto, Ontario, M5M 3W6. And we're here just, good morning to Chair Edwards and the members of the committee and staff as well. We're just here to highlight some key comments associated with our proposed renovation. And there's 2 main drivers going on here. One is there's a lot of water drainage issues and erosion in our courtyard on the backside of our cottage that we need to deal with. And at the same time, this renovation supports our transition to becoming full-time residents in Foots Bay in the next 2 to 3 years. So as part of that and the water issue, we have proposed these customizations that maintain our existing look today, but accomplish what we need for more space as we consolidate 2 places into 1, and some office space as well for living year-round. I would also just add that no doubt you saw the pictures of our property. There's heavy tree coverage surrounding the whole property, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that from the actual lake, you'd have a hard time actually even seeing a cottage from lakeside. So I just wanted to underscore that, and the fact that we are building within the existing perimeter of our cottage. There's no sort of change to that. And we're just happy to take any questions on that or on our application at this time.
Thank you very much, sir. And is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support of this application?
No.
Anyone in opposition? No? Are there questions from the members? No questions. Moved by member Grogan Green, second by member Creaser, be it resolved that application A 8721 Rizima and Abella to permit the enlargement of a dwelling is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 5,397 square feet or 11% within the lot area 200 feet from the high water mark. This variance is granted as shown on the notice attached of the decision. Is subject to the following condition. 1, that it is be satisfactorily confirmed by the township that the property contains no more than 1 sleeping cabin and that a change of use permit be issued if necessary. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir. Enjoy and welcome to Muskoka if you're moving up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next application is A 9321 Allen and Turnbull, and that is Ms. Darling.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 93/21 in the name of Allen and Turnbull. The subject property is known municipally as 1264 Carlingford Road, unit number 6. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan on page 200 and 201 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to reconstruct and enlarge a 1-story boathouse with an associated dock. Relief is requested from the maximum permitted lot coverage on a category 1 lake of 10%. The proposed lot coverage on the entire lot will be 11% or 1,844 square feet. The variance requested is 1% or 173 square feet over what is permitted. Notice of the public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance and 4 submissions have been received to date. Submissions were received from the Township's Public Works Technician, Tim Sopko, the Township's Chief Building Official, Nick Snyder, and an area neighbor, James Heron. These 3 letters were circulated prior to today's meeting to committee. The 4th submission is from Eric Campbell, the Township's Interim Fire Protection Officer, who comments that this location is 8 minutes from the nearest fire station with a 10-minute assembly time. Under ideal conditions, the first arriving fire apparatus would arrive in 18 minutes. Response with our fireboat would be over 30 minutes under ideal conditions. We would suggest that water access be maintained for setup of portable fire pumps in the event of a fire. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have recommended the application to be approved. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as the owner applicant here?
They are, and the agent as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Chair Edwards, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm a planner with Planscape, P1L, 104 Kimberley Ave, P1L 1Z8, Bracebridge, Ontario. We're here today to represent the applicants, Janet Allen, as well as the extended family, which includes the Turnbull family. Cameron Watt, who is a new planner in our office, is here today to make a presentation and introduce himself to the committee. And with that, I'll turn things over to Cameron.
Mr. Allen, and good morning to everyone. I'd kindly ask that our slides be pulled up at this time. Perfect, thank you. And as noted, the municipal address of the subject property is 1264 Carlingford Road, Unit 6 on Lake Joseph. And the following two slides provide a visual reference of the property's location on the lake. So the next slide, please. And the next slide. And so we feel that this proposal is relatively straightforward. As mentioned, the application proposes to remove the existing dock and boathouse to construct a new enlarged dock and boathouse essentially in the same location. And notably, the proposed new dock complies with all the requirements of the zoning bylaw and is not subject to this specific application. Next slide, please. So the site plan outlines the dimensions and setback distances of the existing and proposed buildings and structures on the property. As you can see, the existing 1,073 square foot dwelling and the 235 square foot sleeping cabin are to remain on the property. And looking specifically at this boathouse design, the black dashed lines on the site plan outline the footprint of the existing 409 square foot boathouse. And the blue lines outline the footprint of the new 536 square foot boathouse. And notably, the new proposed boathouse width is actually narrower than the existing boathouse. And the existing boathouse is considered to be legal non-complying. So the approval of this application would ensure that the new boathouse is brought into full compliance with the township zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the proposed minor variance is requesting a lot coverage of 11% or 1,844 square feet within 200 feet of the high water mark. This represents an increase of 127 square feet or 0.7% above the existing coverage. And the variance will allow for the creation of a slightly larger boathouse that will replace the existing legal non-compliant boathouse that is in desperate need of repair. And next slide, please. Pardon me, I'll switch my video on as well. I apologize if that was none. So just for the benefit of committee, here are just a few photos that were taken from the property. And this first photo is just the front of the existing dwelling, as you can see. And the next slide, please. And this is just the front of the existing cabin. And next slide. This is the front of the existing dwelling and the existing boathouse. And next slide. And this is the interior of the existing boathouse. So as you can see, it clearly needs some repair, or in this case, a replacement. And next slide. And this is the neighboring two-story boathouse that's located to the north of the property. Next slide. And this is the neighboring two-story boathouse located to the south of the property. And next slide, please. Just a few points from our planning analysis. The proposed increased lot coverage associated with the proposed new one-story boathouse will not dominate the shoreline or the natural environment. The existing shoreline vegetative buffer contains several large trees, which provide excellent visual screening. The new boathouse design complies with all other requirements in the zoning bylaw, which confirms that the location, the height, the width, the setbacks, and the length of the boathouse are appropriate in this case. Increased building forms are anticipated on Lake Joseph. So the majority of the neighboring properties are developed with docks and two-story boathouses. The proposed one-story boathouse is much smaller in size compared to the existing shoreline development in this area. And just lastly, the proposed boathouse will increase the lot coverage on the subject property by 127 square feet, which is a relatively minor increase. And next slide. So just in conclusion, the proposed minor variance meets the four tests of a minor variance, and it represents good planning. And at this time, myself or Mr. Allen would be pleased to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Watt, and you're right in under your 5 minutes, which we always appreciate. So thank you for that, and welcome aboard. Are there any questions is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this?
No.
For or against? No?
No.
Okay, any questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Bozemuth.
It's a really small point, but this, I think, and I would look to staff to confirm, is the first time we've seen, or maybe it's not, but it seems to me like the first time we've seen an application where it's actually 6 feet above 11%. And all the cases we've seen, I mean, we've seen many cases to go from 10 to close to 11%. And I don't recall ever seeing one that's actually technically over. I just want to make sure that that's not opening up a window. So that, I mean, this is only 6 feet, 6 square feet over, but 173, you know, something slightly less than 1% of 1,671. It's just a technical point, and I just want to get clarification.
I believe, and that Miss Darling can answer that, but I thought it was going down to 11%. That's what it's on mine.
So
I'm looking at the variance summary page on 188.
Okay.
Let me just pull it up so I can look at the same thing. Through you, Chair, usually, so the way that our zoning bylaw rounds is that it's rounded to the next decimal. So when something comes in at 11.01, it's rounded to 11. So that's why with this 6 feet, it would be rounded to 11.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes.
So just clarification. So if it's 11.05, do you round up or down?
It would be through you, Chair, it would be rounded up. So it would then be 11.1.
Okay. Any other questions? Moved by Member Grogan Green, second by Member Quinn. Be it resolved that the application A 93/21 Allen and Turnbull, to permit the reconstruction and enlargement of a one-story boathouse with associated dock is hereby approved with the following conditions being granted. 1, to permit a lot coverage of 1,844 square feet, 11% for the entire lot. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried.
Thank you, committee. Have a wonderful day. It looks like to be a nice one out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next application is a 9421 Mockery, and that's Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. Next application to be heard is minor variance application A9421 in the name of Mockery. The subject lands are located at 1024 Appian Way. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 220 of the agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is summarized as follows. The applicants propose to construct a one-story garage. The maximum permitted height for an accessory building is 20 feet. In this case, the proposed height of the garage is 25.5 feet, and therefore a variance has been requested. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 10 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and the township's building and public works departments both submitted comments advising they have no concerns. Both comments have been provided to committee. There is an additional comment provided from the Emergency Services Department, stating that the applicant should be advised that access to the water be maintained to allow setup of portable fire pumps in the event of a fire, and also that driveways meet the requirements of the Ontario Building Code for access by emergency services. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration and have no concerns with the application, except that the location of a shed is unknown. The shed's location was not shown on the site plan, and it is unclear if it is in compliance with zoning bylaw requirements, such as the side yard setback requirement. Therefore, staff have recommended a condition that requires confirmation that this building complies, and if it does not, that it be relocated or removed. I have no further comments at this time, but would be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyer. Is the applicant's agent here now?
The agent here.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. Good morning and thank you, Chair and the committee members. I'm Eric Muntz of the DeConing Group, 1A Lee Valley Drive, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. We are the authorized agent acting on behalf of the owner. So first off, thank you staff for the report and for your support on this application. As noted in the report, the reason for the relief is not for a second level and will not be used for additional habitable space. And if you look at the design, you will notice that the design does not lend itself to be used as anything other than a garage. I know this is a concern for these types of structures, so just want to make that clear. Something to note that I didn't see in the report is that the garage has already been permitted with the height of 20 feet in this location, but it was determined that the height was not sufficient to accommodate a multi-level car lift for the storage of automobiles in the garage. The garage is comfortably set back from the water's edge at well over 200 feet. As well, you can see in figure 5 in the staff report that the site starts to slope back behind the driveway, making the garage even less visible from at all. We hear staff's concerns with that garden shed, and we agree to the condition to confirm that the garden shed complies with the zoning requirements, and we'll provide an updated site plan showing the location of that shed. I think it was just missed, just an oversight on our behalf. I do believe that it would conform to the zoning requirements, so we're fine to confirm that. And thank you for your time, and here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muntz. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application?
No.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
No.
Okay, are there questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Bosworth.
Staff has suggested that possibly some plantings at the front may be in order. There's not a very good picture. There's not a picture that shows the whole frontage, and I was just wondering what the staff visit caused them to put that into the report, and do they recommend that we have some additional plantings? I know there are some plantings that you can see in the picture, and they look like they will be large trees at one time, but I'd be interested in the planner's opinion.
Mr. Sawyer, can you answer that?
Thank you, Member Bosworth, for your question, and through you, Chair Edwards. This shoreline actually has gone through extensive revegetation. It used to be a very open property, and prior to the redevelopment of the property, and there is an existing site plan application on the property, and staff did verify that those plantings are in good condition and are maturing. Some of them have a way to go to fully mature, but the shoreline has seen a significant improvement over time. And staff did consider if there was, if we should be asking for additional plantings through this application, given the nature of the application for a garage 200 feet back from the water, and that shoreline buffer is improving with time as well. Staff decided that we would not be asking for additional plantings at this time, but committee does have the option to require additional plantings if committee chooses to do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, Member Bosworth.
Mr. Sawyer, was there a vegetative buffer, or was there lawn right down to the water? Could you determine that?
Through you, Chair Edwards, there is no longer a lawn directly down to the water. There's sufficient right along the water. There are some pathways and there are some areas that due to the slope have retaining walls, and then there's plantings within I guess stone planter boxes. But there are numerous, I believe there was well in excess of 100 plantings that have been planted on this property previously. Thank you.
Sounds like a very successful solution here, so thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved by member Bosmore, second by member Creaser. Be it resolved that application A 9421 Mockery to permit the construction of a one-story garage is hereby approved with the following variance being granted. 1, to permit a one-story garage to be 25.5 feet in height. This variance is granted shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision and is subject to the following condition. 1, that confirmation be received that the shed located on the west side of the dwelling complies with zoning requirements and that it is to be relocated or removed if necessary. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
And the next application is A 9621 Sinton and Owalski. Ms. Starling, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 96/21 in the name of Sinton and Wasoka. Sorry about that. The subject property is known municipally as 1092 Cranberry Road, unit number 41. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted site plan and drawings on page 237 to 245 of the agenda package. The purpose and the effect of the application is summarized as follows. The applicant proposes to construct a one-story garage with a storage loft. Relief is requested from the maximum accessory building height of 20 feet. The proposed garage is 26.5 feet. Variance requested is 6.5 feet. Notice of this public hearing under the Planning Act was circulated 11 days in advance, and 8 submissions have been received to date. Submissions were received by the Township's Public Works Technician, Tim Sopko, the Township's Chief Building Official, Nick Snyder, 2 letters of opposition from the Garelli family and Peter Scott, who are area neighbors, and 3 letters of support were received from Adam White, Blake Johnson, and Joe and Kathy LaPena, who are area neighbors. These comments were submitted to committee prior to today's meeting. The 8th submission came in after, and it was from Eric Campbell, the Township's interim fire protection officer, who comments that the nearest fire station from this location is 10 minutes with a 10-minute assembly time, meaning under ideal conditions, the first apparatus would arrive at this location in 20 minutes. We suggest that there be water access available for setting up portable fire pumps in the event of a fire. For fire service apparatus access, we suggest that the driveway follow the requirement of the Ontario Building Code, section 9.10.23.3. Staff have prepared a detailed report for committee's consideration and have no concerns. Staff have no further comments at this time and are happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darling. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here wishing to speak on this?
They're both here.
Okay, would you bring them in, please? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Clinton Archer. My address is 66 Batiste Trail, Georgetown, Ontario, L7G0H2. I am the agent acting on behalf of the property owners, David and Antonina. and David is also in attendance. After reviewing the staff report, I agree with the recommendation of the approval of this application and that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. I want to thank Kristen Darling for her thorough report and the support of the town staff as well. There are a couple of things I want to mention before we get to questions. I want to talk about how the building design came about, and I will discuss things from more of a planning point of view after. From a design point of view, there were 2 main factors that really created the size, height, and shape of the building. The proposed accessory building is designed to allow enough height on the ground floor to store vintage tractors and boats, which is a big hobby of David. The remaining building height is made up of the roof. The property is completely off-grid, and so the idea was to install solar panels on the roof to provide a power supply to the building and to minimize the cutting of additional trees and vegetation. We are proposing an 812 roof slope, which serves 2 main purposes: shedding snow and solar panel efficiency. When David and I reviewed the drawings, it was clear that between the width of the building and the roof pitch, that there would be enough area to allow for some storage in the roof space. We ended up choosing to utilize the space for extra storage, as otherwise this space would be inefficient. And with the price of construction these days, we believe it is vital to take advantage of any possible usable space. Between the height of the ground floor and the pitch of the roof, it was discovered that this building is over the allowable height for accessory buildings. David did approach the neighbors well in advance of this application to provide insight of his intentions and to listen to any of their concerns that they may have. I believe we've worked to minimize the impacts by maximizing the distance away from the neighboring properties. We have quite a large setback from the side lot line. By removing all the windows, doors, and lights on the side facing the neighbors, and by proposing to use darker colored siding and roofing to blend in with the forest. From a planning point of view, one of the biggest things I noticed when reviewing the proposed height variance and the impact it would have on the surrounding area is the location of the proposed accessory building. When I was at the property, I stood in the location of the proposed building and looked in every direction. I could tell right away that the view to the closest neighbor and the view to the lake were both very distorted from the dense amount of trees that are currently present. The other thing I noticed is the sheer distance to the lake and to the closest neighbor are both quite far away. The accessory building is about 105 feet from the lake and almost 45 feet from the closest side lot line. Plus, there's an additional 66-foot wide road allowance, further increasing the buffer between the subject property and the closest neighbor. The majority of the trees in all these areas are quite high and would eclipse the height of the proposed accessory building, thus reducing visual impacts. This property is quite large, but due to the uneven terrain and the environmentally sensitive land to the northeast side of the property, the possible locations for this building were reduced. The area we chose is one of the flattest parts of the property and is respectively far away from the environmentally protected area to the northeast. Almost all the natural vegetation between the proposed building and the lake, which is about 105 feet, are to remain untouched to help maintain screening to and from the lake and will help ecologically as well. The lot coverage we're proposing in the 60-meter setback area is only 4.93%, which is well under the allowable lot coverage. To conclude, I think our request is minor in nature, and it would have little to no impact from any of the surrounding vantage points, and that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. I thank you all for your time and am available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak in support of this application?
No.
Anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application?
Yes.
Okay, bring them in, please.
Can't tell. Can you see me?
No, can you turn your video on?
Oh, it is on.
Okay, well, anyway, we can hear you. Go ahead. Your name and address, postal code, please.
My name is Sandra Giorelli. Our mailing address is 5 Halliburton Avenue, Toronto, Ontario. Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you for the opportunity to address this meeting today. We have read the township report, but must state that we disagree with it, and our preference would be for the committee to not grant the variance for the additional height. The report states the township has received 3 letters for and 2 letters against. I would like to please state that the 2 that voted against are the property owners that are directly impacted by the proposed building. We are concerned with the visual impact and the potential glare created by the solar panels and the potential for the loss of enjoyment to our properties. We have already seen the severe impact of solar panels and the glare that they create on our lake. The other letters are from owners. Well, 2 of the other owners are from the letters in 4. They are owners of vacant land, and they are in no way impacted from the size and scope of this proposed garage. And in reality, may subsequently benefit from the variance precedents that this mate will potentially set. The structure will be more barn-like in size than a garage. Mr. Simpson has mentioned that he is hoping it doesn't look too much like a municipal building. Since he owns 11 acres, we are disappointed that he is choosing to build this large garage to store boats, tractors, an ATV, and a dirt bike on the waterfront side of our small lake, consisting of mostly humble cottages. We know that Mr. Sinton has the right to build whatever he wants to within his legal rights on his property. We just wish that he would have a more organic relationship with his property and take into consideration the impact of his actions on his own property and to others. Recently, we received a notice of a webinar being offered by the Muskoka Lakes Association featuring Mr. David Pink and Mr. Rob Kennedy from the township. The communication stated, it's your property, you have the right to improve it, but there are some rules to follow that will ensure you are a good neighbor and are improving in a way that's responsible to the environment, to your neighbors, and to future generations of Muskokans who want to enjoy Muskoka just as much as you do. We agree 100% with this message and wish all property owners would feel the same. We have discussed the proposed garage with a few other cottages on our road and with the president of our cottage association, and all agree that the height and size is excessive. Thank you for your time, and please note we would like to receive a written copy of the committee's decision.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here wish to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, other questions from the members? Yes, Member Quinn.
Yeah, just if you used to build a garage in that, would that other temporary, or I call it temporary, but that metal storage building be removed?
Happy to speak to that. Good morning, Chair Edwards, members of the committee and staff. Dave Sinton, 219 Albany Avenue, Toronto, Ontario, M5R 3C7. Yeah, I can confirm that temporary shipping container will be removed as soon as the building is approved for use, and that will help my marriage as well. So, yep, certainly I'm going on the record that will be removed. Thank you.
Okay, any other? Yes, Member Creaser.
I was just curious about, there's 2 letters of opposition and 3 in support. Only one really makes it clear where they are in relation to the property. So I'm through the chair asking staff to clarify where the letters of opposition and support are actually coming around the property. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Darling, can you answer that?
So through you, Chair, the one letter you're referring to is probably the one that has the map, and he's like mapped out the sidelines. From what I can find, the two letters of opposition, if you look, let me pull up the map so I can clarify. So there is a road allowance to the, I believe it's the west. The two letters of opposition come along after the road allowance that's found on the, just on the south side of that property. And then there's the two letters of opposition follow the two properties that are right after. So if you look at the key map on page 223, you'll see to the south that there's a road allowance, and then the next two properties are where the letters of opposition are coming from. And then the letters of support are coming from the north and the properties around it. I hope that helps clarify.
Okay, does that help?
I can add to that just briefly. On the side with towards the road, there's a road allowance. Then neighbors to the south, two of which are not supporting, and then the neighbor that wraps around. It's a direct contact neighbor around the outside. That's the Burn Recreation Club. They are supportive, and then the neighbor that further down that has an easement through my property is supportive.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Member Creaser? Yes, Member Bosworth.
I was just wondering if Mr. Sinton would, 150 feet is a reasonable level back, but it is a large building and 26.5, and so a 6.5 foot variance, I think, is what you're asking for, is fairly large. You know, the 20 foot garage is we run into this fairly frequently. 26.5 is sometimes on the higher side of what's being asked. And I noticed you've got on the south side of your, I think I would call it the south side of your driveway. Is there any way you could push it farther back into the property?
We're constrained. So thank you, Member Bosworth. We are constrained going back sort of away from the water in the long way direction of the lot by an easement that I mentioned there. So we have our own laneway, but then also an easement. And the property is large. It's 11 acres. It's rugged and it's beautiful, but it's very uneven. This is really the best spot, and we've really looked to try to minimize the impact. A big part to the neighbors in particular. A big part of that's been the distance. You know, we're over 110 feet from their lot line, let alone the setback on their side. Other factors we're gonna, you know, if you look from their direction up towards us, it's really quite a dense bush. There's not a lot to see, so they are minimizing cutting and making it a black building, and also no windows, no doors, no coming and going on their side. We've really done our best to minimize the impact from there.
Okay, any other questions? Does that answer your question? Yes, Member Quinn.
I heard Mrs. Girelli speak about maybe the potential of a reflection of the solar panels. Are solar panels today not somewhat pigmented or more like an etched glass, like you might have in a shower or a bathroom window, that won't reflect quite like, probably less than your metal roof?
Yeah, it's a good point, Member Quinn. Thank you. The metal roof will also not be zero reflection, as you note.
So it'll be a matte or flat?
Yeah, that's right. In terms of the solar panels, well, certainly I'm happy to look into you know what's available in terms of matte. The biggest thing I think from the glint perspective is just to get them up off the ground. We do need more power, so that's not a negotiable, and nor is where the sun is. The sun is in the south, so we need to have more panels, and we would have to have them on the ground if they weren't on the roof. And if they're on the ground, then we need to clear more foliage, and that also produces a larger glint problem because it's sort of a more clear shot to them. Whereas this way, I think as in the site plan, we can really maintain that forest quite dense between us and the neighbor and have the panels up. The other thing that Clint and I have been brainstorming about how we can minimize the impact even further. The whole roof doesn't need to have solar panels on it, so we can assess, where that would again minimize any reflection for the neighborhood.
Myself, I'd rather see solar panels on a roof than on the ground. I think that looks much better.
Any other questions? I'll read the motion. Moved by member Bosworth, second member Quinn. Be it resolved that application A 9621 Stinton and Waskowska to permit the construction of a one-story garage with a storage loft is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, permit a one-story garage with a storage loft to be 26.5 feet in height. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached to the notice of decision. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried.
I'll be back in a sec.
Yeah, and we're just going to take a comfort break for say 10 minutes. Thank you.
and said that I think she would prefer to have the planners read out the comments again.
Exactly. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Next application is A 9721 Moore, and that is Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair Edwards. The next application to be heard is minor variance application A 9721 in the name of Moore. Subject lands are located at 1017 Bond Drive. I would direct committee's attention to the submitted sketches starting on page 263 of today's agenda package. The purpose and effect of this application is summarized as follows. The applicant has increased the height of an existing dwelling from 24 feet to 26 feet to facilitate the construction of a dwelling addition consisting of a walkout basement level. While the increase in height is in compliance with the maximum permitted height for a dwelling, the construction was completed without complying with the minimum interior side yard setback for a dwelling and without the benefit of a building permit. The minimum permitted side yard setback is 15 feet. In this case, the existing dwelling is located 6.9 feet from the side lot line. And since the height of the dwelling has been increased within this deficient setback, a variance from the side yard setback requirement has been requested. Notice of this public hearing was circulated 10 days in advance of today's meeting in accordance with the Planning Act, and comments from the township's chief building official have not indicated any concerns, except that public works staff have noted that a portion of the existing septic bed appears to encroach onto the township's road allowance. If the construction of the new septic is required in the future, or if a change in location is required by the township in the future, this encroachment shall be corrected at no cost to the municipality. Comments have also been provided by emergency services to advise that under ideal conditions, response time is 13 minutes by road and 30 minutes by fireboat. The applicant is advised that water access is to be maintained to allow the setup of portable fire pumps for access by fireboat if required in the event of a fire. Staff have prepared a detailed planning report for committee's consideration. Staff have recommended approval, provided that a site plan agreement be entered into for retention of existing vegetation and for plantings in the front yard area, and that a storage shelter be removed as it is not considered to be a legal non-complying structure. Regarding the structure, the applicant has indicated on the site plan that it is indeed intended to be removed. I have no further comments at this time, but I would be happy to answer any questions from committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And is the applicant or applicant's agent here?
The applicant is here.
Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect. Good morning, Chairman Edwards and the committee members and staff. My name's Scott Moore. I'm 50% owner. My brother's the other of the dwelling we're talking about. I live at 108 Tresina Drive in Oakville, Ontario, postal code L6L4B7. I'm going to take a brief moment to kind of explain what's transpired over the last year. The cottage has been in our family for 58 years, I think now. My dad built it, but last May, my boys and I started to, I'm going to say, uncover the 60 years of stuff my dad and my grandfather buried under the cottage. And as we started to clean that out, it was very evident that the wood posts supporting majority of the structure were rotten, or the footings that they were on were disintegrating or non-existent. At that time, I obviously looked for a contractor who came over and showed his concern that the dwelling was unsafe, that more damage could be done. So I put in place, obviously, how do we correct this? And found a lifting company and an excavation company, and they put a plan together. When they put this plan together, obviously drawings needed to be done. They lifted the cottage and started to excavate as the plans were being finalized. And when they submitted the plans to the building department, this variance came up, and the intention was to lift the cottage and put it back right down at the same level as it always was. I know there's an indication that the height was graven, but it's more on the front. The overall dwelling itself did not go up. Once they got the variance, the group asked me to come up and had a meeting that their direction was for it to be up in the air for the entire winter was not safe, that the banks were going to cave in, or the cribbing that they had was going to potentially heave and it was going to cause more damage. So at that point in time, they suggested that I hired an individual by the name of Dan Duke, who's an engineer, to come out and certify each of the necessary steps to make sure it was exceeding code and get the cottage back down so it was safe for the winter. And that's, you know, the steps of why you had heard what has happened. So now we're in front of the committee. Now, through all these steps, I'm very open, good relationship with all of our neighbors. I've got written letters that they're aware of what was going on and they're in support of it and all that type of stuff. And we took every precaution necessary. You know, my mom, who's passed away, this cottage is her result of her pushing my dad to buy it way back then, the land. Trees and everything are a big deal to us. So we built a proper roadway down and made sure that the ground supported the work that was going to require and wasn't going to damage the trees. And then I know in the suggestions on the site plan about that, and you can see in the drawings that there's not a lot of trees at the front of our cottage, and that's not due to the lack of not having them. As a kid, some of the trees actually blew down. There's exposed bedrock that's probably 18 feet or so from basically lakeside right up to the cottage, that if there's no dirt, there's only like an inch of dirt. We have full intention. I have a full site plan ready to go to have trees planted more on the left and right side of the cottage when we're at that stage that would support the yass here, and we're fully in support of that to kind of soften up the look, if you want to call it, from the waterfront. I just wanted to, I guess, I wasn't trying to get around any form of plan or anything like that. I was kind of presented a problem and tried to go around it the best I can, and from the guidance of my contractors, did what I did and where we are at this point in time. That's really, you know, all I have of an explanation of why we're at the state we're in. And if there is any questions, by all means, I've been there all my life. I grew up there. So if there's questions about the property or what have you, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in support?
No.
Anyone in opposition?
No.
Questions from the members? Just one thing. So the cottage is exactly the same size as it was. It wasn't extended.
No, yes, sir. It was basically put up in the air and put right back down at the same level as it was. No square footage or anything. It was I guess the existing cottage when my dad built it in 1960 or whatever it was. The plans there. So there's a portion of now that is under the basement that is within that bylaw of 15, but no, there's been no square footage added, nothing like that as far as coverage of the property.
Okay, and the thing, did your contractors not tell you needed a building permit?
No, they did 100%. They told us we had to have a building permit, but when they got everything coordinated in the plans, They had lifted the cottage and started to excavate before they'd put the plans in. And when they put the plans in and this variance had come back, it was in a strict time frame to get it done before the winter because they were concerned it wasn't going to last another winter. That's when we got the variant, and they came back and said, well, we have to apply, which is the meeting. And by the time we'd get in front of it, they were, all three of them, from the lifter, the builder, and the excavator, were very concerned that they said it wouldn't last the winter in the shape it was in because they had already dug the banks and the building was in the air to support the new foundation.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
No further questions? Moved by member Creaser, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that application A 9721 Moore to recognize an as-built addition to a dwelling consisting of a basement with a walkout is hereby approved with the following variances being granted. 1, to permit an as-built addition to a dwelling consisting of a walkout basement to be 6.5 feet at the closest point from the easterly interior side lot line. This variance is granted as shown on the plan attached in notice of decision is subject to the following conditions. 1, to the site plan agreement be entered into along with securities and retention of existing vegetation and tree plantings in the front yard. This agreement is re-registered on title. And 2, that the storage shelter shown on the plan on the site plan be removed as intended. This approval shall remain in effect for 3 years from the date of decision. Any questions or comments? Yes, member Quinn.
I don't know, did you ask for anybody to speak, anybody else for or against?
I believe I did, yes, and there was no one.
All right, I didn't.
Okay, I did ask.
All right.
Elizabeth, you confirm that? Yes. Yeah, Elizabeth just confirmed it. So any other questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Now, the next application was A 103-21 Pulsar, and they have requested that they're not continuing this and it be closed. But just in case there's anyone here to speak on this, was there anyone here wishing to speak in support or opposition?
No.
So that is put aside. The next motion is moved by member Bosworth, second by member Grogan Green. Be it resolved that the meeting adjourned at 10:59 a.m. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And have a good Easter, everyone. Thank you.